Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon episode 23. Good grief, we've done 23 episodes. So this one is another interview, and this time we are interviewing Tom Douglas. He is also known as the Wiltshire Redneck, and you will have seen him if you follow Instagram and Facebook. He's a taxidermist. His work's absolutely fantastic, so hopefully you'll enjoy listening to this podcast. We are coming up to Christmas, actually. It's just around the corner. So you should hopefully be listening to this podcast on the release date, which is Boxing Day. Something to do after you've eaten too much Christmas dinner and you've either been out for a walk around with the dog or do some shooting. Come back in, stick me on and have a listen. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon podcast. Today we have got Tom Douglas, aka the Wiltshire Redneck, if you follow him on Instagram. How you doing, Tom?
Yeah, good. Thanks, buddy. You all right?
Good. Yeah. Thank you for coming on. So a little bit about you first. Obviously, you're a taxidermist. Family business, I believe.
Yeah, my dad's been a taxidermist for probably nearly 40 years now. So before I was born, so that's all I've ever known him do.
So yeah, I was kind of trying to dig a bit and had a bit of a search around Google, and all I ever seem to find is positive reviews, and everybody says fantastic work. And I think I've seen most of that with what you've posted on the internet. Every time you post something up, it's absolutely a magnificent piece of work or something slightly different, isn't it?
Yeah, I appreciate that. But I've only been 2 years now next week since I've been full time. So I'm a beginner, really.
Well, a very talented beginner if you are. So let's sort of the multi-million-dollar question that I ask everybody. It's obviously how they got started in shooting and what sort of led you down this route. So can you tell us sort of earliest memories of when you went shooting and how you got into it, really?
My dad was a gamekeeper for a little bit when he was young, and then growing up as a kid, we lived close to a big sort of commercial pheasant shoot. My dad was always a loader, so every weekend I would go beating, and then like holidays I would go beating through the week as well. And all summer after school we'd go up the farm, and back then they used to rear all the pheasants in house.
Oh, right. Yeah.
After school through the summer, me and my brother used to go up with dad, and we'd go through all the pens, collecting all the eggs, and then go back and help the keeper put them in the incubators. And then just kept beating all the time. And then once I was old enough, you'd get invited on the beaters days. Once you were 14, 15, 16, old enough to carry a gun sort of thing, you do the beaters days, and just always had air guns as well growing up. But dad never had a rifle license. He only ever had a shotgun.
Oh, okay.
So I only grew up shooting a shotgun. And then once I sort of turned 16, when I got my own license sort of thing, I got big in the pigeon shooting. And I used to do a lot of that all the time. And there was a really good local guy, older guy, used to take me out with him. Used to do a hell of a lot of pigeon shooting any day I wanted to go. It's all he did every day of the week, basically.
Oh, fantastic.
So whenever I was free, I'd just text him and he'd take me out with him, And ferreting as well. I used to do a lot of when I was young. I always had ferrets growing up, and then sort of strayed away from shooting for a few years. As you do as a young bloke, you're more.
There's other things to interest you, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, in life and going out and partying and whatever. And then when my ex-missus fell pregnant, and then I was sort of settling down a bit, getting a house and stopping with the fast cars and partying and everything like that, I got big into the pigeon shooting again. So because I still had my shotgun license, obviously, but didn't have the rifle license. So I got big in the pigeon shooting again, and I'd be out 2-3 times a week. Started building up a bit of permission everywhere, some good permission around where I live. doing the pigeons, and then a guy who Dad knew when he was young started coming in a lot, getting deer skulls cleaned all the time. A fella called Terry Copperthwaite, and he was like a local hunting guide. So his full
Right.
business was deer stalking. That's all he did. So he had a house in London but lived in Salisbury all week, and he just guided foreign clients mainly on the roebucks, through the
Yeah,
season.
yeah.
We did a lot of guided pigeon shooting, and Terry and Dad sort of became best pals, and Terry kept getting ill, with like never really knew what was up with him, and we just did more and more and more to help him. So first of all, I'd be helping on the pigeons, but that's what got me into the rifle, you see. So I would go out and do all the culling for Terry.
Oh, cool.
So this was like 2017, I think. So we started going out and was doing loads of culling, and then my dad got his rifle license and he started doing a lot. And then me and my dad both did our DSC ones together in 2017, and
Right.
I got my rifle license. Luckily, I got given a full open ticket off
Oh,
the get-go.
fantastic. I was going to say that's
It's,
quite rare, even back in 17, to get an open ticket.
yeah, it was quite rare, but Terry had probably 30,000 acres of stalking to go over. And so I needed the open ticket to be able to go farm the farm and also
Yep.
take clients. So very early on, from getting into stalking myself, I was also learning to take clients out and guide and have to do all the work revolved around that. And then Terry got more and more ill and eventually passed away. Don't know what year it was, 2018, 2019, but me and Dad basically took the business over for him, like running it for him when he was ill. So we had his email address and everything, and we were taking all the clients, and it became quite full time that we were stalking, taking clients, and doing all this management of all this land that he had.
Good
And that's how
grief.
I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
into it, really. Was all through that.
It's
But
kind of a
back
baptism of fire to get straight into being a guide and shooting a rifle.
yeah, it was thrown in at the deep end for sure. Yeah, because the culling we were having to do as well to keep on top of all these farms that Terry had, because a lot of them had high numbers of fallow.
Yep.
So some of the farms you were having to, like on your coal plant, you were having to shoot 100 fallow a year on each place. So
Grief.
it was pretty full on, and you were sort of having to go out every morning before work and every evening after work and stuff.
Yeah, no, I can understand, especially with the fallow numbers down your way. It's fairly mental.
Oh yeah, some of these places were, and that's coming on to the next bit, which is probably your next question. How I got into the taxidermy was because we started culling, and I was only ever allowed to cull. So all the like trophy sort of stuff was for clients, not for me.
Right.
So for the first year or more, I was just shooting fallow does, fallow prickets, roe does. Never shot. I shot hundreds of deer before I ever shot anything worth putting on the wall, because that wasn't what I was there for. Um, and then basically I started shooting a few small roebucks, and of course that was the first things that were worthy of the wall.
Yep.
Um, so first of all, Dad cleaned a few for me, just the skulls. And then once I started shooting a few more, he said, look, you learn to do your own ones. So that's
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
how all that started, of wanting to clean my own trophies and just doing the skulls. So I sort of learned to do the skulls first, because the only things I was shooting were only worthy of a skull.
Yeah, no, because you've got quite an impressive. Well, you started above your staircase, didn't you, with a row, all the row bucks you'd shot, and I think you've outgrown that space and had to build another space for it.
Well, before that, I only had a few on the wall. I sort of had one row of three, and then that became six, and that became nine, and then yeah, like that was my old house. Then in the staircase, like yeah, you remember how they were there. I started rowing them up the staircase, and then the 9 that were in the sitting room became medal ones, and then the rest were going up the stairs, and then yeah, I totally outgrew that. And then where I've moved to my new house, I've got the garage like a bit of a man cave sort of thing, and they're all around the wall in there. I don't know
Oh,
how many there is,
fantastic.
but there's a fair few of them.
But you've had you always post some fantastic photos of some absolutely stunning beasts you've had, like some sika, some fallow. I think you've got elk. You've got a couple of elk as well recently.
Yeah, I shot 2 elk this year. I've been taking it easy this year because I got the newborn babies just coming up 6 months, and
Right.
2 new puppies, and so this year I've laid off the stalking a lot. I only shot about a dozen good roebucks and a few good fallow, and then I shot 2 nice elk, but that's just park. They were like in a park basically.
I bet they're massive because that picture you posted the other night, I'm sure people can go and have a look back on your profile. But that photo you've got a park red, is it, next to these 2 elk that are on the wall?
That's a Tiverton red,
Okay.
which are a good size. You know, they're like a Norfolk red, the big down Tiverton Devon way. Yeah, and then him next to the 2 elk, you can see the size difference, because when I posted just the elk, people said, "Oh, you sure they're not red?" And I said, "No, they're blooming massive." And they said, "Oh, no, they're not." And I had a red down the cabin because I store a lot of my already done stuff down the bottom away from the workshop. And I
Right.
couldn't be bothered to carry it up where the weather's been bad, you know, to hang it next to them. And so the other day when I mounted a red, I thought, oh, I'll hang it up, and then people will realise how blooming big these things are.
Oh, they're
But
massive. They really are. Yeah.
yeah, well, one was actually I only shot as a replacement skin for one I shot 3 years ago, probably,
Right.
because I decided to put it in tan, and then the baby came a week early, and then I totally forgot I put it in this bucket of tan. And then obviously where I wasn't at work when the baby first came, I forgot you got to keep stirring the skins when they're in tan. You can't just let them sit because some will float up and dry out and the tan's not on
Right.
it. And by the time I come back to work and realise what I'd done, it slipped the skin. And out of all the skins I could have done it to was this plumbing beautiful elk that I couldn't just replace.
No, absolutely.
So I only went to shoot another one because I'd cut the skull of that first one for a shoulder. So I couldn't
Right.
even just hang it on the wall. So I had to go shoot another one to replace it. And then about a month later, the guy rang up and said the older big bull was getting too aggressive and had tried to attack him. Could I come take that one for him?
Okay. So you basically ended up with shooting 3 elk, but 2 are mounted.
Yeah. So the one that I shot this year, the first one, I've just got the skull in the garage now. And
Right.
then I used the cape for the first one, and then yeah, I wasn't planning on shooting 3. I was happy with one, but it just ended up that way.
I think we've been quite lucky on the hill this year. We've only had one person, which was their first red. It wasn't the best red, but they were the only person that's asked for something caped, because as soon as we cape them, the game dealer obviously won't take our venison anymore. So that carcass now is kind of waste up with us.
Yeah, so all game dealers technically won't take them once they're caped. The only thing you can do is you cut the deer in half.
Yep. Yep.
You can cut it in half where you go back to with the cape,
Right.
and you process the front half yourself, at home, and then you can weigh the back half in with the game dealer.
Okay, that's handy to. Oh,
You,
we
you,
ended up skinning the entire thing anyway, because the guy said I want as much skin as possible. So it's just like you can have
yeah,
the whole thing.
yeah. You used to be able to cape them and take them in, but where the last year or so the rules got a lot stricter, when they brought out the new ruling, they stopped it. Because
It's it.
I don't blame them. You see the state of how most people cape. Like I wouldn't take the carcass either.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. That was kind of the next thing. Obviously, I've seen a lot of posts, and I'm sure people that listen to this will have seen stuff you've been doing. And you always do a nice explanation about, obviously, if somebody's going to cape a deer off, what a cape should look like when it arrives at you, and what a cape shouldn't look like. It shouldn't have half the deer still attached to it, kind of thing.
No, that's it. I do need to make a better video, but I just never have the time, and the weather's never great when you want to go do it.
It's always the way though, but actually most of the stuff you put out explaining about the process of going through, and I think I've asked you loads of questions about stuff in the past about sort of fleshing out the skin, and you were telling me, for example, I think you said about Sika deer, how you have to thin the skin down because it's really thick, tough skin on there basically.
Yeah, so when I tan any of the deer, I have to flesh them thinner. I mean, so like a winter cape like roe or early summer, but pre-rut, they're quite thin. But even a roe in the rut thickens up quite a lot.
Okay.
I'm not I haven't read into a whole lot on the science of it, but deer can thicken and thin their skin throughout the year. I'm not quite sure how they do it, if it's fat molecules that they grow inside their skin or what it is, but it changes through the year. Um, you probably won't notice it that much when you're just skinning deer because it's only mainly around the neck. It's not a sort of part that you pay a lot of attention to if you're
No,
just
you just
whacking.
get it off as, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Get it off
just
as quick as
whacking the head
possible.
off. But if you cut the head off a seeker, you'll see round the top back of his head. The thickest one I've had was 2 inches thick.
Wow. I think
Round,
I've seen a fallow like that that was an Irish fallow, and it was, yeah, I think when we shot it, when the boy who I was with shot it, a 308 bullet went round the fat in its neck kind of thing. It was, yeah, just
yeah, but I mean,
phenomenal.
this is the skin, not the fat. The
Oh, just
skin
the
on
skin.
just the
Wow.
skin on a seeker. The thickest I've seen it is 2 inches thick.
Good grief. That's
Yeah,
phenomenal.
and that's why I always say to people, don't neck shoot seeker in the rut because
No.
it's like armor plate. I've shot seeker at like 18 yards and the bullet's not got any penetration
Yeah, yeah.
when the skin's that thick because it's like a blanket. It just absorbs all the kinetic energy on the and then it doesn't carry any power through.
No, it just sort of gives it a bit of a sore neck. And to be honest, those things are that mean anyway. It probably just carries on, doesn't it? Yeah.
That's it. It's the same with big red stags. If you shoot one of them in the neck at 100 plus yards, if you're not on a big 30 caliber plus, you're not hitting them with a lot of power once that skin absorbs it.
Just don't talk to me about this season with copper bullets and all the rest of it on the hill. It's just been
Uh,
a nightmare.
but those rutting stags, they will just take an
Oh yeah.
impact, shake it off, and
It's like, yeah, yeah,
you're on hill
exactly.
stags that are small. These big lowlands. I shot one with Dartmoor Deer Services a few years back, Tom, and
Yep.
that's the biggest red stag I've ever shoulder mounted from England,
Right.
like body wise. The picture of the elk, it went on the right hand form that elk's on.
Okay. Right.
That's how big. That's
Wow.
how big my red was. And Tom, I know himself. He's got one mounted in his house, and that is a monster as well. Some of those ones on Dartmoor are huge beasts.
It's a
No,
weird thing though, isn't it? Because obviously they've got much better feeding down there. There must be a good source of minerals that let them get their heads. Well, I got sent a picture from a boy in Norfolk today of a red, and he's like, "Oh, look at the size of that," and I was like, "That's like 18 points. Never seen anything like that up with us because maximum they get to is 14ish on the hill."
it's not just the heads; it's the body size. Dartmoor and Exmoor produces some huge body beasts. I've shoulder mounted quite a lot of Norfolk reds, a lot of big park reds, and I've big super golds, 35, 40 point heads,
Right.
and they still go on that smaller form that Tiverton one was on, like body size.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like that one I shot with Tom, the body, it's like 25, 30% bigger again.
Good
It's
grief. So, but are
incredible.
they actually true reds, or have they got Wapiti or something like that in them?
No, but the thing with red deer, you're talking there's multiple subspecies in reality.
Yeah.
Your Scottish red deer is its own species in itself. If you look on
Yes.
SCI, for example, Scottish red deer is listed as its own.
It comes up as a different scoring technique and all the rest of it,
Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, totally different. So you've got Scottish, then you've got English, then you've got the European ones are different again.
Yeah.
So I don't know. there's a whole lot more to deer genetics than most people. Because the Seeker are the same. Seeker are totally different. Your Seeker up there and nothing like our Seeker down here.
No, and then they're not like the Irish Seeker again. They're completely
No,
different again.
your Seeker up there are way smaller, have much longer manes, better coat, like totally different fur type, color.
Mm, yeah,
A lot of our Seeker down here are just short haired, even in winter, very dark,
yeah.
very dark and huge bodies, way bigger bodies.
It's bizarre when well, I suppose it's like anything though. You go up and down the country and things change, don't they?
Yeah, well, that's the problem with, because obviously with Seeker, they call our ones a service Nippon, so Japanese Seeker,
Yeah,
and they ban them all as that. But and then in parks you can get your Manchurians and stuff, which are way bigger, obviously. Manchurian Daibowski are the same thing, but to say Japanese Seeker are all one thing, Japan is a blooming big place. Like from the north of the North Island down to the south of the South Island is like the blooming North Pole down to the tropical rainforests in difference. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Japanese Seeker change hugely depending where the strain came from across the islands. So that although they're classed as the same thing, they're not. They're totally different subspecies. Really, they're just not redefined.
That's quite interesting, but it's interesting to know. But I suppose it depends where the deer was caught up, where in the area, and then which park it was taken to and released. Because obviously, yeah, you've got the Guinness estate in Ireland had a huge amount, which is pretty much where the Wicklow Seeker came from. I
Yeah.
don't, and then obviously they've been spread out through different parks up and down the UK and into Scotland. So, yeah, that's good.
Well, most our ones they were put on Brownsea Island down here,
Right.
and that's why all of ours span out from the Pool Basin
Okay.
because they were put on Brownsea Island originally, and then they swam across to the mainland, and then all our Seeker now are spreading up. So all our New Forest ones, right? We're getting them in Salisbury the last few years, in Wiltshire.
Somebody was saying they've been moving quite quickly up and down out from your area. They're moving up the country.
Yeah, yeah, I've shot Seeker in Wiltshire now, whereas years ago that was unheard of. They were further down in Poole. So, eventually, much like Munchjack or anything, they'll spread out.
Yeah.
Chinese water
Yeah.
deer spreading, as the years go on, they're more and more common and roam in bigger areas.
Well, it seems Chinese water deer though are just on the grow completely. Especially, well, I think none of the game dealers are taking any of the coal deer at the moment in Norfolk because they say Christmas is on the way and that was it. So there's boys over there pulling their hair out because it's like, well, what's the point in culling anything if you can't sell it?
No, I don't know, but they're one of the deer I know the least about really because I don't have any near me, and I've only ever shot one just to tick it off the British Six list.
Oh,
But
that's it. I've seen the pictures and I've seen they look like a teddy bear, but it's the only one I need to still complete the list.
yeah, I've mounted a few, but I've not watched them in the wild a lot, or not like other species where you sort of sat and watched them and hunted them and done a
That's
lot
it.
more with them.
I suppose the only thing I've ever been told about them is if they do run, they don't stop because obviously from the country they came from, they're normally being chased by something with big teeth that wants to eat them. So that's it. They're 3 postcodes away.
Mm, From what I've seen, a lot of people say as well, they do tend to they run like mad, but they do a big loop and come back. Like they they run a long way, but they'll sort of head back to where they come from eventually.
No, fair enough. Well,
But
I will find out when I actually get to actually get one in the scope and see what it's actually all about.
yeah, I'd like to shoot more of them, but the market on them has always been a funny one. The prices are quite high, and you
Yeah.
know, CIC's just changed on the 1st of November their scoring, so I don't know what that's going to do to the market because now medals are harder to get than before.
I was going to say because it seemed like everybody that ever seemed to pull the trigger on something, you were a 50-50 chance if you scored a medal with it, really.
Well, it was more than that. If the deer was more than a year old, you would get a medal before
So
because even a year old, they could go gold by 18 months. That was the problem
right,
before. most of your proper trophies weren't medals. Most of your
Right.
like old ones, because it's a tooth, when they get old, much like a warthog or something, any toothed animal, they wear them down as they get old.
Yeah.
So if you shot an actual old one, what you'd call a trophy animal, it quite often, I've only ever shot one and it was a silver, but that's because it was an old one, and the roots
With
are showing at the teeth,
worn teeth. Yeah, yeah.
worn teeth, yeah, but they're thick as hell, and lovely big teeth, but they've worn down a lot.
Yeah, right. You've also hunted outside the UK, because I think that was another thing I've seen about is you've obviously been over to Africa and taken a few species out there.
Yeah, so I've done 3 trips to Africa so far. Don't know how many days in total I've done out there, 50, 60 days, I think, over the 3 trips. All of them are nearly 3-week trips. So I've done a fair
So
bit.
is
I think
that
I've done 28 large game animals in Africa.
so is that all with the rifle, or have you used you because I think you've done a bit of bow hunting as well?
So I took my bow last time I went last November, um, but the weather wasn't on my side for bow hunting at all.
Right.
Um, First of all, it was too wet, and then when the wet went, it was too hot. So the
You
problem
can't win.
is, yeah, with a bow, walking stalking's very hard, and you've got to be a very good bow hunter to do that anyway. And as a total novice, walking and stalking is extremely hard, even if you're good at fieldcraft and good with a rifle to hunt, to get sub 20 yards from animals. And most of these antelope are herd animals, so you're not stalking single beasts, you're stalking in the much like fallow stalking. Fallow stalking on foot is very hard because you're stalking into
Yes.
a
Yeah.
herd all the time. So it was the same thing. I would walk and walk and walk, and I'd easily get 40 yards, maybe less, but where I hadn't killed anything with a bow yet, I really wanted to be sort of sub 30 yards, 30 yards in my first sort of shot that built some confidence. And I just could never close that. I'd get to like 33 yards, or half a dozen times I'd get to draw the bow back, but then they'd spook before I could even get drawn back.
I suppose
And
it's still good practice though, but yeah, as you can
oh,
say that.
brilliant.
Yeah.
The heart, you had more fun. I had more fun blanking than anything, because you were trying so hard creeping in, and really having to work with the winds and stuff you don't have to worry about as much for a rifle when you can shoot stuff at distance.
Yeah.
And I got really close to some beautiful animals. And then annoyingly, you get a few animals that you get like I got 12 yards from a big Nyala bull, but I didn't want to shoot a Nyala bull because I've already shot one, and they're not that cheap. And I didn't want to spend 1,500 quid on something that I didn't have planned to shoot, if you know what I mean.
No, but I suppose but the thing is, it's still you've done the stalk, you're in close to it. It all adds to the memory, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it was great, but the first week I was in Africa on that trip, it did nothing but rain. So when it rains, you can't sit in a hide because there's so much groundwater. They don't come to a water hole like a pond or a
Okay,
puddle.
right.
Because when you bow hunt, normally you sit over a water source or something, because the animals will come in for a drink. If it's red hot, there's nowhere else for them to drink, you see. So
Okay.
they'll briefly come in, have a quick drink, and they walk off again. Um, and then the blooming next 2 weeks, it went from pouring rain to 40 odd degrees every day, and the animals were drinking in the middle of the day because they were thirsty and
Okay.
heat.
Right.
But you couldn't go sit in a blind in the middle of the day, because even when I'd go sit in a blind at like 3 o'clock, I'd sit like 3 till 7 in a blind. But you were drinking a bottle of water every half an hour because you were just dripping.
Yeah.
Being in a sealed blind in that heat, it's like being in an oven.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, completely.
I did get a kill with the bow, only one. I got a diker, which was nice. I do like hunting the small animals out there, so
Yeah, yeah.
that was good to get that one. And like I said, I did have chances at other stuff. It just wasn't anything that I wanted to to
I
take.
suppose that's the thing with the bow though. It's you have to work a lot harder to get your reward at the end of the day. But actually, as you said, the stalk is just as good sometimes.
Yeah, and it depends where you go. If you go to some of these farms that are really set up for bow hunting, and if they've got food, you know, good food and water, then the animals are there all the time in front of you. But
Right.
the places I hunt, they're not like that. You know, it's more, there's not piles of animals coming into those watering holes. It's not,
But it's
you
all
know.
it's all again it's all managed. I'm assuming because that's the preconception a lot of people see for Africa is you're going over there, you're shooting all these big game species, and it's just take pot shots. But 90% of these places, it's well orchestrated and well managed, isn't it? Game control.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh Jesus, the work that those guys put in is incredible. But you know, places that are just, some places are just solely set up for bow hunting. They'll sort of have a higher concentration of animals in the area
Right.
compared to a rifle place. Um, and every place is different, depends where you go there. I've only hunted in Limpopo and the Free State, but even those are polar opposite places.
Right.
You
Right.
know, the Limpopo you class as like bushveld, and it's just crazy thick. You got a job to see 100 yards anywhere. So there's no such thing as a long shot. You know, you're just in thick bush.
Right. Okay.
Whereas down the Free State, you got huge open vastness. You know, you can spot and stalk over miles of ground. You know, you can sit
Yeah.
on the
Yeah. Yeah.
mountain and spot stuff right down in the valley basin and walk for it, which
Oh,
you can't do up
fantastic.
in Limpopo because you can't see anything.
So come back into the UK now. Obviously, you've been to a few of the shows. Are there any shows this year you're going to be going to, displaying at, anything like that? Do you need any more work, or are you already snowed under as it is?
Uh, I'd love to display at shows still, but I'm not invited to them anymore.
Right.
Um, this year just gone, I did go to the game fair for the day just to touch bases with people because you know, since I was a kid, Dad always had displays at shows on with
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
different companies and governing bodies, sort of thing. So you sort of grow up going to the shows. You got a lot of friends on stands and stuff, so it was good just to go and catch up. I'd like to try and go to the British Shooting Show next year. That's the best show in my opinion in England.
That's good.
Not a big
No, no, no.
show, you know. It's not a big show, and you don't have the outdoor stuff, you know, like the dogs and the horses and the shooting. But you know, it's a really good show for everything you need is there. All the big companies that you'd want to see are there. You know, I always enjoyed that one the most.
That's good. No, no, that's always it's one of those things. There's so many shows now, and I don't know whether, well, some of them I feel a bit like they just, you end up going there and you see more clothes and hot tubs and double glazing and all sorts of things for sale rather than actually what you're actually going there to see, which is the countryside sports and the shooting equipment and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, the game fair is very much like that. You know, it's just all sorts of everything. But it was always okay when you had a lot of that when the game fairs were much bigger. You know,
Yes.
years ago when you had the CLA game fair, um, you know, we used to exhibit it, but friends of mine used to travel from Europe over and camp in the camper van and do the full 3 days, and it would take you that to walk around it and enjoy
W-
it.
Well, the CLA was massive though, really, back in the
Oh,
day.
it
It
was
was it was huge.
huge. Yeah, and they were incredible. And back then, you used to have all like the steel timber sports, and you know, you'd have the guys running up the poles, and
Yeah, yeah.
there was so much to see and do, whether you were in the fishing or ferrets, didn't matter. There was always plenty of everything.
It was quite nice because actually I think the Scottish Game Fair this year, the last few years it's been quite small because of obviously COVID and all the rest of it, but this year it was big again. I never really got to see it, but it's kind of like one of those, you have the Friday, all the gamekeepers rock up and all the estate managers, and that's their kind of day, but you still get the the guys doing the timber work, the ferret displays, the birds of prey, all of that still actually goes on. So it is still a family there. All right, it's not as big as the CLA or anything anywhere near that. You can see the whole place in a day, but it is still a good fun day out to go to, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what a lot of them are missing. I find they just don't have the visual stuff anymore. You
No,
know, a lot.
yeah,
So like the British Shooting Show, fantastic show. You know, like I said, my favourite, really, for like everything you want. But there's nothing. There's the air gun range, yeah, but there's no fly tying. There's no thing, and a lot of people don't like it if they don't have a lot of friends who are at the shows. You see,
yeah, yeah.
see,
I
for
just think
me,
the
it's the
internet.
opposite because I know so many people. I'll spend all day just trying to chat to the people I know. But you
That
need to have all these activities to keep everyone else entertained when they're just there wanting to look around. Otherwise, you're done in an hour or two.
Yeah, no, I think that's that like the Scottish Game Fair is exactly that. Everybody rocks up just to catch up with people, and you probably can't walk down any aisle without bumping into somebody you know, and you stand there for 10, 15 minutes, and all of a sudden it's like I've only done two rows, and it's already
Oh,
lunchtime kind of thing.
that's what the game fair was like. I went with Camo Kev, and I think all day we only did the first two rows, and that was it. We sort of go three stands, and you'd be chatting for half hour, and then you go a few more stands, same again.
But that's what it's a social occasion. But I think the Game Fair's time with as the internet's developed and all the rest of it, a lot of the skills have all been put on a YouTube channel, so people just go, well, I'm not there to see it anymore because I can watch that when I get home, kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's no deals anymore because it's all so cheap online.
I think that's it. You used to go to the game fair because you'd go there, you'd save up all your money, you'd turn up at the game fair, you wanted to buy something, you'd haggle away on the stand and you get a deal. Now, well, the deals aren't there because the price you see on the stand is basically the price you get it online.
Oh, sometimes more. I've had it before where it's cheaper online from the same company that's there,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
pitch price they got to cover. So, but
And I think,
our
yeah.
shows in England are very different. If you look at online at videos of hunting shows in Europe or America, they're totally different.
Yes, yeah.
Like the taxidermy there and stuff is insane.
Well, I
You
think
don't
that's
you
the
don't
big
see
thing, though.
anything.
Yeah, as you say, it's that, but the European still hunting is still very much ingrained into society. It's still a very traditional thing, and the Americans, well, for them, it's their biggest pastime, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, but I can never understand. Now I'm not doing the shows. There's little to no taxidermy there now. No one else does. I used to do the live demos, which you don't see anyone else doing. Dad always did the live demos on the birds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's, but you look at SCI conventions or these big hunt shows in Europe, they got piles of taxidermy. It's absolutely insane what they have there.
But do you think taxidermy, because taxidermy for buying it in this country, like people want to buy it, it's a huge after sales. Like our antique shop buys, they're desperately trying to buy as much taxidermy as possible. But do you think it's one of those trends that's kind of disappeared and less people are having it done and they'll just happily have like a European skull mount?
Mm, well, people in England are tighter on what they spend. It's the same with the hunting. English guys, they don't, especially with Africa, the English guys don't go there, spend big money. Like most English guys that go, they're just doing coal hunts or the cheapest packages they can find. It's not like we're spoilt here, really, aren't we? Our
Yeah, we
hunting
are.
is so cheap.
Yes.
What we have access to and what prices we get it for is the cheapest in the world, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Nowhere else
No,
in the world
absolutely.
can you hunt such quality for such little money. So guys in England don't want to spend, if they can shoot a big trophy deer so cheap, they don't want to spend all that money on a mount.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
you
I completely understand that.
if you had to save up, if a gold medal roebuck costs 5 grand here, and you had to save up for that, you would then spend 350 quid getting it shoulder mounted.
Of course you would. Yeah.
But when a lot of people pay you know, even going rate for clients on a big outfit is 1,500, 2,000 maybe for a gold. But, you know, a lot of English guys with their mates or people they know, they're paying 600 to 1,000 quid for a good gold.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
know, they don't then want to spend half the money that on of the hunt on a mount.
No, so they'll just have they just have the skull
They
mounted,
just
get a
have the
medal
skull,
for
yeah.
it.
But
Yeah,
you got to see, you know, look in America, you look up whitetail hunting, the price of them, or elk, you know, it's crazy money.
yeah,
And even the guys that live there, you know, they get a tag and they're self-guided. Those guys will spend £10,000 on feed,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
thousands on trail. They'll spend 20, 30 grand a year and kill one or two whitetails.
Because they've been tracking that whitetail for the last
Yeah,
5 years, making sure it's coming in and growing.
yeah. They're hunting public land or what, you know, anyone can take that deer. So they're spending so much time, money, effort to get it. When they get it, they respect it so much more and will always get the mounts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I completely agree, and I do think, yeah, we're very spoiled in this country, as you say, because literally, if you've got a mate and he's got some deer land, the chances are you can go out and do some shooting, and if you want to pay for it, it isn't going to cost you. Well, what is it? You can come and shoot a stag with us for 650 quid.
Exactly. It's cheap. But
It
like I
is
say,
cheap,
in
really.
America, you couldn't go shoot a whitetail for less than, like, if we went to America, it's going to run you $5,000 or more just
Yeah,
to shoot a
and
small
that's
one.
and that's just to get and that's a tag with the chance that it might not turn up or you might not see it.
Yeah, you know, with an outfit. So that, you know, there's a guy I hunted with when I was in America last, in Dave Stuckey, and there's a video on YouTube where they go to his trophy room, and every deer he's ever shot is all shoulder mounted in there. And
Yeah.
he's quite a big, you know, well-known hunter, but I think I can't remember if it's 18, maybe it might be less whitetail in there between him and his son, but they're all mounted, you know. There's not really like, he might have one or two Euro mounts, but nearly all of them are shouldered.
Yeah.
You know, they just treat them like that because that's a whole lifetime of deer for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it isn't like they go out every weekend and they can get to shoot something. It is you go out and you go after that one particular deer that you've been searching for.
Yeah, it's like I say to people, you look at you know, meat eater. You know, he's like a huge hunter, but how much does he really shoot a year? It's not
Yeah.
that many really, unless
No,
you've got,
absolutely.
unless you are literally a multi millionaire, you're not shooting that much over there.
No, no, no. And it's yeah, it really does put it into perspective how lucky to have the number of deer we've got in this country and the availability and access to go and shoot pretty much whenever you want, really.
Oh, so lucky. I mean, even you, if you price up Roebucks in France, Spain, Germany, you know, the prices are way more than what they are here.
Yeah, no, no, no.
That's
It
why
is.
all those
It's
guys want to come and hunt with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've seen it. We've had French clients all season, Italians and all sorts, all coming over just to come and hunt stuff because they say it's cheaper to come and have that time
Yeah.
up in Scotland or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the whole problem with then the taxidermy. You know, people don't. This year, I must have had over a dozen good gold medal Roebucks just for skull mounts.
Right.
You know, and some of them were 150 CIC plus heads, you know, monstrous heads. And it pains me to just boil the skull out. You know, all I want to do is shoulder mount it, make a
Yeah, yeah.
beautiful mount. And I have to clean the skull. I can't bear it. I would always shoulder mount any gold I ever shot.
No, no, no. I can understand that because obviously, just to tell our listeners, I'm sitting looking at a picture of behind you, and there's a fantastic wall. I think we've got a fox, Chinese water deer, muntjac. Is that a red? And then you've got couple of seeker at the top. So yeah, that's just a few of his mounts on the wall behind him. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah, there's one of everything on the wall there. More than one of everything.
So you're, yeah, because you're obviously busy with, I think you just said to me before we started recording, you had a number of reds to tan and stuff like that. And how does your year run? Is it always busy, or are you is there a real peak or trough in work?
It never really makes much sense to me. You'd think it would go with when the seasons start and stuff. Obviously, in the ruts, I get a bit of a influx of stuff when the ruts are on. But I've hardly had any skull mounts in for the last few months. A lot of people haven't really been shooting a lot lately,
Right.
which is surprising. Um, but like I said, I only went full time at Christmas 2 years ago. So, just coming up 2 years full time. Um, so I'm new in the business, really. I'm not snowed under with work like some of these guys that have been in the business for years. That's why they've got backlogs of 3-4 years,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
they're so well known, their names are so long standing, they just get so much work. You know, we're only, I know it's my dad does it as well, but my work's mine and his is his. We're only one man in a shed. You can only turn out so much every day, and that's it.
So if we want to get our mounts done, we need to get them to you quick before you get really busy and get a 3-year waiting list.
Yeah, at the moment I've only got about, I did count up earlier, I only got 25 shoulder mounts to do ahead of myself.
Right. And
That's just customers ones. I got
how long does a typical shoulder mount, for example, talk us through the process for somebody sends you something? How long is it going to take before they see it again?
I try and get everything back to you between 3 and 6 months. At the moment,
Okay.
I'm tailing closer to the 6 month.
Right.
But it all depends. Some stuff sort of jumps the queue by default. It all depends what's going on.
Okay.
It depends what deer it is. Say if you bought me a Chinese today and it's rolled up, or you've bought it in, it's already frozen, and I've got so much work on. Like I said to you earlier, I've just had 12 deer come in to tan for someone to go abroad. I got no time to start that because I've got 12 skins to prep and get in tan and flesh all this week. I'm just going to chuck that straight back in the freezer,
Right. Yeah.
and then I might not get it back out for months to even tan it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if you bring me a big deer, like if you rolled up with a red stag with the head still in the skin,
Yeah.
I've got to skin that and put it straight in the tan today. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
generally the smaller deer I'll get on with faster than the big ones. The big ones are a bit more, there's more work in the tanning involved, and like a red stag, you've got a day's worth of work in just taking the skull out, the skin, fleshing it down, washing it, tanning it, prepping it all. Because like a big red stag, his face is bigger than a whole roebuck cape.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's
So
massive when you compare the size of it.
yeah, there's more tanning work in the face of a red stag than a whole roe. So obviously the roe's a lot faster for me to get on with, and on the fleshing machine I can be sat there for over an hour with a big red getting it real thin.
Okay.
Whereas
Yeah. Yeah.
in that hour I could bang through, half a dozen or more roe, get them all down, ready to go.
Right.
So
So
the big reds take a lot more work.
So for people that don't know, if they wanted to bring you, I don't know, say somebody listens to this and they decide they want to get something taxidermy, if they wanted to get you a skin, what's the process? Do they need to salt it, freeze it? How do you want it presented and brought to you, really?
Ideally just fresh. So,
Fresh.
but you need to get it. This is the thing, people, I don't know why they don't think about it with skins. You need to treat a skin like it's a piece of steak that you'll want to eat.
Right.
You got to treat that skin the same as you would the carcass you're going to eat. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
just leave it sat in the truck overnight, leave it sat in the truck for 2 days, hang it in a tree overnight. You want to be shooting that, getting it straight in the fridge. You don't have to cape it straight away, but
Okay.
you want to get it in the fridge and get the cold air blowing on it and chilled down.
Chill down. Yeah.
Ideally, if you've got the time, you'd cape it straight after you shot it. Get it
And then
straight
what?
off.
Just chill the skin down as quick as possible.
Yeah, but hang it in the chiller by its antlers is the best.
Right.
If
Okay.
you just drop it in a heap on the floor, the top gets cold and the bottom's hot still.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
The best thing to do is hang them up, tie a bit of string around the antlers and hang them up like you would the carcass. But it's no trouble to leave the skin on for a day or two, as long as they're hung and not leant against the wall of the chiller.
Right.
But they are easier to skin when they're hot,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. It's like anything.
skinning if you're going to do the meat. It's much easier when they're warm. It just peels off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, bought to me fresh in the chiller is always best. But the smaller deer, your roe, muntjac, Chinese, they're easy to just cape off, roll the cape up round the face and chuck in the freezer if you need to.
Right. Okay. And that has no ill effects on the skin.
No, no, no. As long as you wrap the bag and you've not got a freezer that pulls really hard, that a freezer burn it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They could go in the freezer for months, no problem, as long as you
Oh,
wrap
okay.
them up. But obviously, like your big deer, you're not getting a red stag in the freezer with the head in.
Not unless you've got like a walk-in freezer. I was going to say it's not the easiest
Yeah,
of things to do.
yeah. I have had people do it, but you got to have a big freezer.
Yeah.
The red stags and that are best bought in fresh within a couple of days.
Right.
At the end of the day, the better you bring me the skin, the better your mount's going to be.
Right.
You
No,
know,
that it's kind of good that there'll be people out there that are suddenly thinking about this. They want to go out, they want to get their deer shot, and they're suddenly thinking, well, who do I take it to? They'll listen to this, they might get in touch, but at least they've got some idea of what the process is, because I think there's not a lot of information out there for people. You kind of have to know somebody that knows somebody that's done it. But as you said,
yeah,
you might do another video or something like that at least you
yeah.
can help people.
I need to make a proper video because even a lot of pro hunters, guides, they don't really know the best way because they just haven't done it or don't know. And a lot of people end up sticking the deer, the bleed it, which then every cut you make, I have to sit and sew up. It
Eh,
takes me ages. And on short head deer, those cuts are going to show
Yes, yeah, you can't
in the
always
mouth.
hide them, can you? No.
No. And especially if you've stuck the knife from the outside in, you can cut the hair. So
Yep.
I can sew the cut up, but I can't make hair back where it isn't if you've cut it, if you know what I mean. I always say to people, whenever you shoot anything, if you're even thinking that you might shoulder mount it, just field granick it.
Yep. And
So
leave the rest.
I don't bleed any deer I shoot. I never bleed
Right.
a deer. I just field granick them immediately.
Okay.
So every deer I shoot, whether I'm mounting it, keeping the skin, or just if it's just a cull deer, I still always just field granick them. So I just go from the pelvis to the sternum, and then I just reach up,
Grab everything out. Yeah, yeah.
grab everything, and pull it all out of there. If I know it's a cull animal, and I'm definitely not having the cape, I'll just go from the pelvis to the sternum, and then I'll open up the throat a bit so I can tie the food pipe off there and pull it through.
Yeah, yeah.
But generally, you don't get much coming back out of that if you just cut it anyway.
I was going to say, if you're dealing with it on the ground and it's not been hung up or anything like that,
Yeah,
there's very little that's going to go up there unless the thing's fallen down a hill, pointing downhill, and its stomach's running back up in
yeah.
its mouth,
And
kind of thing.
if you do it immediately, so the stomach's not started swelling up and blowing up there, then you don't get anything. But like we said earlier, if you know you're caping it, it can't go to the game dealer anyway. So
Yep.
how you granick it doesn't really matter because it's your consumption. So I just field granick them, pull it out, and then you can leave that and carry on stalking. If it's winter or cold, that can sit there.
Exactly. It'll chill by itself quite happily, won't it? Yeah.
But in the summer, if you shoot a good trophy, you want to just granick it, get it in the truck, and go home early. Don't stay out stalking for
No, exactly. Well,
hours with it
it doesn't
baking
cool,
in the
does
sun.
it?
No.
Exactly.
If you shot a really good roebuck or something really nice that you want to make a mount of, take it straight home and get it in the fridge.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
becomes the important thing. If you decided that that's a nice deer and you want it mounted, your priority should switch to keeping that in top condition.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I think that's probably that you probably see it. And I think that's where people come and start. They'll shoot something. They'll and ah about it. They'll spend the rest of the day out. They'll get home suddenly go, I'd like that mounted. But then by that time, the skin's still warm. Things are going to start to slip and there's going to be problems, isn't there?
Yeah. The usual is they've cut the throat all the way up and then decide they want to shoulder mount it and have cut it all the way to its chin.
Yeah.
Um, and the other reason I say the field gralla kit is because if you don't, so a lot of people like to shoot them and hang them up with the guts in still,
Yep.
and then they cape them and then gralloc them. But the whole problem with that is, obviously, if you haven't stuck it because you don't want to make a hole, you hang it up, you cape it. Once you go to cut the head off, all the green and all the blood then comes flowing out that pipe all
All
over the skin.
yeah.
And then often I get skins brought in that just look like you've put them in a bucket of blood and green and dirt. And once you get that blood on the fur, it's not easy to wash out.
I was going to say it's normally the blood that seems to cause problems with the skin and forces it to slip quicker and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, especially the stomach acid as well.
Yeah.
But the blood stains it, and I have to wash them and do all sorts of extra steps to try and get that blood, especially like fallow when they got a white bib and you cover that in blood, or a white fallow even. You know, sometimes I can't get it out completely no matter what I do.
So you end up with a pink fellow.
It sort of goes like a brown, you know, the blood goes brown after the tan.
That's right. Yeah.
So it does kind of just look like they're a bit dirty, but it's the blood stain. And but you know, if you really want that best condition mount, do your field gralloch, all your blood's gone out there. Then
Yeah.
later on when you cape, there's no rubbish going on your cape. It's just
I
nice
was
and
going to
clean.
say that's the key, isn't it? It's just making sure you get everything out in the field and try not to contaminate. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, when you cut the head off, because that's exactly where it's going to go. It just comes straight out the tube at the other end normally.
But even when you're skinning down, you're nicking, if you're not super clean at caping, you're nicking veins that are close to the surface, and then the cape just ends up bloody.
Yep.
If you look, whenever I post a picture of my capes, they're like pure white.
Yeah.
You know, there's no blood or anything because all the blood's been removed before.
Yeah, and I think the key is it's again it's knife skills as you're taking that skin off when people are doing it. Guys just they rush a bit or they're trying to get it done quickly because they want to get away or something like that, and you end up nicking the skin and things like that.
Oh yeah, normally I end up with steaks and meat all over the cape. It's funny, the best capes I ever get are from the most novice people.
It's probably because they've taken their time to just get
Yep,
everything off so
that
slowly. Yeah,
that is the key point. They have taken their time and given it effort.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's always when I get a young lad like an underkeeper or something, their capes are always the best. The first deer they've ever caped, and it's better than top pro guides, you know,
Well, the
because
top
they
pro
just
guide's
take
there
their
to just
time.
get it done as quick as possible. If it's got more meat on it, he's not cut the skin. Therefore, we'll get that away. The taxidermist can sort it out.
Yeah, but that's the main problem. You know, if you're guiding these deer and charging the money, your priority should be to deliver the quality
Absolutely.
skin to the taxidermist. If you've just earned, you know, your red stag stalking's cheap, you know, you've earned the 600, 800, whatever you've charged. That's part of the service is that you can give them their trophy.
It'd be nice if I saw that money, but as a guide, you don't see that money. That's going to that's all going to the stalking agent at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, but you know what I mean. That's
Yeah.
part of your job as a guide isn't just hunting it. It's the
No,
after hunt
it's the
prep.
whole it's the whole thing. It's the whole package at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it. You know, you should be able to deliver the customer with their product at the end,
Well,
not just pull the trigger.
ours are all well, pretty much everybody just has like a Euro mount skull back, and Tom, the other stalker, he does all of the skulls and cleans up and preps up for them. So yeah, nobody ever seems to complain. They all come back nice. It's amazing how many guests don't actually want to take their trophy away with them.
Yeah, that surprises me to be honest.
Yeah, we either have, can you saw the antlers off? I'd like to take them home to make them into candlesticks, or I've shot a bigger one before. No, I'll leave that behind, thanks.
I think that's sometimes the thing with those hill stags because a lot of them aren't huge heads. You know, it's not.
It's what's there at the time, isn't it? The stalk might be you've had a fantastic stalk, but actually the animal you've got into isn't massive. He's the biggest one that was there, but he isn't going to be something you potentially last year you shot something bigger.
Yeah, and it's not like these lowland reds when you're charging 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 for these big stags.
Yeah,
Then
exactly.
you're talking those guys are gonna want
They want everything. They want the whole thing.
everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because some of these, not many gold medal red, true gold medal wild reds are ever shot in England each year, but you're talking 5 grand bare minimum for one of them upwards. The
Yep.
only the only one I've ever been offered that was a genuine wild gold, that was 6.5,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was
yeah.
too much for me. I would have loved to have shot it, but you know, they're just hard to come by, and
Well, that's
you
it.
got to
And
pay the
again, it's one
money.
of those things. As soon as they're there, somebody will take it, and that's it. It may have taken 10, 15 years to develop into that. You've only got to pull the trigger, and it's away, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean that's a bargain price compared to the rest of the world. If you look at red stags abroad, red stags in Europe, they are serious money to hunt,
Yeah, yeah.
especially good,
No.
good big ones. Some of these New Zealand ones, geez, I wouldn't like to know the price of them.
No, that new world record one that made it into the press was a fair monster, wasn't he?
Brian's one, yeah, he shot 4 world records in one trip.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he beat the world record 4 times, broke the 1,000 inch mark, and if you look at the photos, you'll see he now has the SCI #1 with a rifle, a muzzle loader, a bow, and a crossbow. So he's #1 in the book for all uh
All those
like
disciplines. Yeah.
weapon disciplines, and overall he has SCI 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Wow. So
So
that's a
yeah, but if you look that guy up, he has some beautiful trophies. Absolutely, he has 6 of the top 10 biggest sable in the world
wow.
himself. Yeah, and he has them all full mount going up a staircase in
But I
trophy room.
suppose if you spent that much time out there and you've got them, you might as well have them on display, haven't you?
Oh, for sure. These American guys, they have some beautiful mounts. These big guys. It
But they
is.
just well, some of the houses you see, I think we've shared a few photos. Just the stuff, and you can look round, and it's like there's everything. It's like a full scene on the side
Oh,
wall and stuff like that.
painted dioramas, yeah. And a lot of them, that Brian, I can't think of his surname off the top of my head, but I believe he opens his as a museum, or it's called a museum,
Right.
his collection. And when I was in Texas this year, I went to a collection the same that was like a museum, and he opens it to the public. But a lot of it's his trophies he's hunted,
Oh,
and
fantastic.
that had everything under the sun in there. So it's
So
different,
it is
different world.
different. So going on from that, is there anything in particular that you would like that you haven't hunted in the UK or anywhere that you want to go after this year?
Uh, UK, I want to hunt goat. I haven't hunted a goat yet.
Okay, a big old billy
Yeah,
goat.
yeah, it's on the list. I have got a guy lined up for it. It's just having the time and the money to go chase one. Um, I'd like to do a bit more in America,
Right.
but again, it's the price of all of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I quite want to do an alligator, in Florida or somewhere. I was meant to do a few years ago, but a hurricane rolled through and messed that up.
That's gonna slow things down there, isn't it? Yeah.
We had the tags, everything. It was typical. Just couldn't. All the boat ramps were closed, full of debris, so we couldn't get out.
It's a shame.
Yeah. Um, and just more in Africa, I'd like to do.
Right.
There's so much, and more in my bow. That's the main thing I'd like to.
I think the bow, as you going back to that topic, like the bow really is that there's still, it seems to have been people are becoming less offended by it in this country. But yeah, the bow certainly does offer a huge amount more skill.
Yeah, they still get offended when it comes to shooting big stuff with the bow.
Even though the power it develops at 30 yards, as you were saying, if you look at all the
Oh,
characteristics, and it's phenomenal.
some of these guys in Africa, they shoot 100-pound compounds,
Yeah.
and those with like a 600 grain arrow setup, you're smoking a buffalo better than the 470 nitro, you know.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, it's the penetration. It's almost through one side and out the other, and it's phenomenal.
Oh, it's when I was over there last, the guy was telling me he was a young lad, my PH, and he'd just been at the school not the year before, and the PH came out one day and there was like a ton sack of sand, and
Right.
he said to them all, right, what do you think's going to penetrate this better than any of the guns, you know? And they all looking, you know, 470 and 375 and all that, and they go, oh, you know, the 375, and he goes, I bet you this bow will penetrate that bag, and they go, no way, you know. And you shoot the ton sack with the rifles, none of them go through.
No.
Draw back with the bow, it went through the ton sack and out the other side,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But no rifle could ever push through.
No, because
And then
that's the beauty of it. That bow and it's designed is just, yeah, it's
oh,
designed for full penetration, really, isn't it? It goes straight
crazy.
through. Yeah,
I hunted buffalo before, and I shot my bull at sub 30 yards with 470 nitro, and I shot behind the shoulder, straight in the heart, and that 470 nitro only went in behind the shoulder, and it stopped in the middle of the heart.
yeah,
I pulled the bullet out of the heart when I grallicked it, but you couldn't believe that great big 500 grain, you know, I don't know how many thousand foot-pound of force in that thing, and it
yeah, yeah,
only made it through the behind the shoulder into the heart. Yet you watch a video of a guy shoot a buffalo with a bow, and that arrow just whizzes through it.
yeah, yeah.
It's
It's yeah.
you can't believe it, and
But I
they
suppose
drop
we're,
quicker.
yeah, we're still trying to. I suppose the whole UK thing is we've still got a lot more education, and people don't understand the concept of what the bow is actually doing, and how good and clean it actually will dispatch if the shot is in the right place.
That's the problem, and the main thing, the shot has to be right, and that requires a lot more skill than the shot being right on a rifle.
Yeah, you get away with the
Yeah,
hydrostatics of a rifle.
and humans in general, you know, the skill level across the board isn't. So you watch all these videos of these pro bow hunters. Yeah, they are killing stuff very well all the time, but that is always the problem. You get the novice guys thinking they can shoot like that, and that's when you run into a, which you get with the rifle as well. It doesn't
You get it with
matter.
the rifle as well. You just get
Yeah.
that. It's you put them up on something and it's the buck fever kicks in, and all of a sudden their heart's racing, and the shot
Oh,
goes to
I
crap,
tell you,
kind
with the bow, geez, did I get buck fever? Holy moly! I've been, you know, buck fever's worn out for me on the rifle, really. Um, Especially like last year, I shot so many big trophies. There was nothing. I didn't get any of that
Yeah,
fever
yeah.
really. I was just numb to it. And I tell you, when I shot that diker with the bow, and he fell over, you know, like gladly, like I was shaking so bad. It was like shooting your first ever deer with a rifle, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it was so hard to just hold the bow steady. I'd been practicing on targets and could hold it, like put a pin on the end, on the end of the arrowhead. And then once you got that animal stood in front of you, it is not the same thing.
No, no, I can understand that. I think yeah, it's especially when you're that close and it's right
Mm.
there. That's the whole difference, isn't it? You're in its space, kind of thing.
Well, like I've said to people, it's just like when you first ever shoot your first ever buck, or your first big buck walks in front of you, you get that huge rush, like it's just like going back to that. That's why I know a lot of guys have shot tons of a rifle and then they end up going to a bow
Well,
because of the challenge and
yeah,
it's just a whole different kettle of fish.
takes it to the next level, doesn't it? You have to use all that fieldcraft skill that you've got, all that knowledge, to be able to get yourself in close and personal and still compose when you actually want to take the shot.
Yeah, I think it makes you a better rifle hunter as well.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
skills
yeah.
from that. because especially what I've learned in Africa, walking and stalking with the rifle and with the bow. Now I can walk and stalk fallow in the woods and get. I shot 2 fallow last week. I've 24 yards
Yeah.
of rutting fallow crept in. Whereas years ago I'd never have been able to creep in woodland. Creep in that close on fallow. I'd have got spotted miles before.
Yeah. But it
Now I'm
just
getting,
it gives you the skill set to allow you to do it, and I think that's the key.
paying more attention to the wind, and even down to how you place your feet when you walk.
Yep.
I walk through the wood, and if I got a client drives me mad, or you hear the crunching coming by.
Yeah, it's been there. It's as they stomp along behind you, it's just like nothing. You close the car door that loud, everything in the woodland's gone by the time we get there.
Yeah, see, I always step onto my toe. I
Right.
step with my toe and then slowly put the rest of my foot down. And if there's a stick, you'll feel it before you even go flat-footed. So if there
Yeah.
is, you just stay on your toe, if you know what I mean, and skip that step. And that keeps you a lot quieter through the wood.
Yeah, that just takes us back to the traditional method of hunting and all the rest of it. Our forefathers must have been absolutely silently moving through the forestry.
Oh, we're spoiled now, aren't we, with thermals and all the gear.
Yeah. But actually, I think it goes on to that topic of conversation. It doesn't make you a better hunter. And I think actually all the modern technology, things like thermal and stuff like that, is taking away the skills, the spotting skills that stalkers should have. Yes, it's great if you're culling, but if you're out just for yourself stalking, I don't think you should be taking the thermal out with you. I think you should just have your set of binos.
No, I do like it. I agree. Yeah, it's a lot more challenging to use your binos, but
Yeah.
you'll walk by so much you don't see.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, but that's all part of it, isn't it? At the end of the day, we're supposed to observe, but most people clearly walk past huge numbers of things without even knowing they're there. But when they've got a thermal, they see a bit more and can get on it at least.
Oh, especially in the woods, you'd walk through and just think there was nothing in there, but the reality is you were just pushing it ahead of you the whole time.
Yeah, no,
You just
absolutely.
never got to saw it. That was it.
So, what I think we're pretty much there, unless there's any questions that you want to answer or anything else that you think you might want to tell us about. I think we're pretty good, to be honest.
Nothing in particular, unless there was anything else on the taxidermy. But
No, I think you've covered all of that. So what we'll do is we'll draw this podcast to a close. Hope you enjoyed that podcast. It was good to record. Tom and I did realise afterwards via a few messages that we had failed to cover quite a lot of the topics in the taxidermy area, and potentially there is a second podcast to be produced covering more of sort of the process of producing a shoulder mount. Anyway, he did say that if anybody was interested, send him a message, send him questions. Remember to go and look at his feeds and subscribe. And if you want anything taxidermied and you're down in the south of England, actually if you're anywhere in the UK, he's probably more than willing to do it. Obviously don't inundate him because I don't want it to have long delays. But his work is second to none. Podcast 23 ends 2023. Kind of convenient really that I've timed it that way. The next time you'll hear from the Outdoor Gibbon will be in 2024. We've got lots of guests lined up, and I've got a load more stories and other types of podcasts to record and get up for you. So please continue listening. Please keep telling your friends about it, and we'll see you in the new year.